In this video, I'm going to be discussing starseeds and extraterrestrials and things like that. It's going to be all over the place. I did not write down any key speaking points, so bear with me. So my thoughts about it is a lot. I've done a lot of research. I had a phase a few years back where I was heavy into extraterrestrial research, like governmental conspiracies, New Age movement regarding starseeds. I read about, more than 100 different alleged extraterrestrial races. I read about stargates. I read about vortexes. I read about the alleged history of humanity. I read about the Lyran Wars. I read about how the universe was created and founded. I read about reverse engineered technology, inner earth, underground civilizations, off-world civilizations on other planets, people who were born extraterrestrials and then they die and reincarnate as humans, aka starseeds. So I guess I'll start there. So starseeds, this is just my personal opinion. Starseeds 100% are a real thing. It's definitely real. Now, I've received spiritual confirmation from many different beings that I've worked with that aliens, extraterrestrial, starseeds 100% are a real thing. It's not how they're not perceived. It's not the way that they're presented in popular media. Sometimes it is kind of like that, but sometimes it's not. And it's also not the way a lot of the New Age movement wants you to think it is. So with starseeds, a lot of extraterrestrial races are advanced. They are more advanced technologically, and they're also more advanced spiritually. And so you can work with them as spirit guides. Your spirit guides can be extraterrestrial. And that sounds kind of crazy, but they are just advanced spiritual beings. There are spiritual beings there are spiritual guides that people have that are not human. People can have demons, angels, other kinds of spirits as spiritual guides. These are also not human. When something is spiritually evolved enough, it can be a guide to a human, basically, if the human wants them to be a guide. And extraterrestrials, the benevolent ones, the nice ones, they can be very helpful to those on the spiritual path because they are spiritual leaders, and they've evolved so far past what humans are going through right now spiritually. Sometimes they will, when they pass away, they will reincarnate on Earth in order to help further a spiritual agenda on Earth, which is usually to help raise the vibration. There's something called the tipping point. There's different names for it. And the idea is if enough people on the Earth, are spiritually awakened just enough of the population of Earth, not everyone, just enough, then a tipping point will be reached and it'll trigger a spiritual ascension of everybody. That's not a rapture event. That's not something like that. It just means life as we know it would shift, because now all of a sudden everybody is kind of psychic in a way. And some people say that it's going to happen abruptly, and some people say the tipping point and the shift into the next way of humans to live would happen gradually over the course of a few decades. And some people say that that's what the new earth is. There's talk of the new earth. The spiritual ones, the spiritual people will end up on a new earth. And some people say that that's something different. Personally, when I was growing up, when I was a kid and a teenager, I used to have many dreams of extraterrestrials. Not all the time, but throughout the years I had quite a few. And sometimes most of the time the extraterrestrials I dreamt of were negative ETs. They were harmful. They were often they'd be trying to capture me or hurt other people. I've had dreams of the gray aliens trying to harm me or harm other people. I've had dreams of reptilian kind of aliens trying to harm me or harm other people, or experiment on people in like laboratories or something. I also remember, and I've had many dreams involving interactions between the military and extraterrestrials. I had a dream that I was taken. It was weird. It was a spiritual dream. It was me. I was a kid at that time. Well, I don't say kid, a teenager, maybe 15, 14. And in the dream, I was kidnapped off the street by a ship, a spaceship, a starship, a mothership, whatever you'd call it. And I was put into this like little, it wasn't a jail cell, but think like a little capture pod, like a little glass tube, and I could like see out of it. And I could see 12 of us were captured. And I was just one of them. And it was relating to my zodiac sign. I'm a Pisces. And it was some kind of technology, and it needed like, it was something that aligned with astrology, but it was like hyper advanced technology that tied into astrology. And I was one of the ones that were needed to like power this like machine. But the crazy thing was the other, I guess 11 other captives, they weren't even all human. Some were men, some were women, some of them were animals. And one of them even was a plant, I think. But the aliens knew what they were doing. And because each one of us was like a different kind of like living being, but we each had a different correlation to a certain astrology sign. And we were all the tubes were put into this giant like machine. It kind of looked like a washing machine. And all the tubes were put into this machine, and it like spun around and it glowed like a vortex. And when we emerged, we all were no longer captive. We walked out of the machine. And I remember I had changed. I was different. My hands were different. My hands were covered in like an orange kind of fur. I was still walking around like bipedal, like a human, but I had fur on my hands and I had long nails. And I remember feeling like I had strong spiritual power. And I was confused, but I remember feeling excited and grateful for this spiritual upgrade. And I woke up from that dream confused. And later on I had a reading done, and I was told that I was a starseed, but not just a starseed, that I was a double starseed, which it's the only time I've ever heard that phrase used. But I was told that I had ties to 2 different extraterrestrial civilizations, both of which I was already familiar with through my research. One of them was Lyran, and the other one was Mantid, like the praying mantis beings. And although the praying mantis beings, the Fergat Malangus, are often viewed as negative, there are some that are positive. And anyway, I've never had any interactions with extraterrestrials, but all of my spirit guides, everything, and I've had many dreams to fully 100% validate and verify, yes, extraterrestrials are real. Yes, they have a presence on Earth. Yes, they can do things for humans in a spiritual sense, and they can definitely act as guides. Yes, some humans have extraterrestrial guides and don't even know it. And yes, some humans have lived past lives on other planets and other solar systems. And those people are starseeds. And so, yes, all of that is true. Now, where the confusion for some people comes in is the starseed community as a whole. To me, it's a big old mess. I've seen like really dumb stuff about starseeds. Like, oh, if you have a certain moles on your body in certain places, you must be from this constellation. You must be from this. I've seen like Facebook quizzes. Take this test to find out which starseed you are. Like just really moronic, like nonsense stuff. And some people, the sad thing is some people will take these little online quizzes or, look at certain like birthmarks and be like, oh, I'm from the Orion constellation, or I'm from, this planet. Oh, this is my people. And they will like make it their whole personality, and they'll like go into like forums and talk about how, high and mighty they are because they are from this group or that group. Or other people will try to like cosplay like what the stereotypical ways that certain extraterrestrial races are described, like the blonde Nordics or the Pleiadians or what have you. People will often try to like dress like that or style themselves like that, and then they'll go online and speak light language, which is the language of extraterrestrials, in order to give people like spiritual upgrades. But to me, it just sounds like gibberish and like they're just being performative. And not to say light language isn't a real thing, but almost every time I've heard someone speak it, it just seems like it doesn't resonate with me at all. It just seems performative. It seems weird, like weird behavior, and like psychosis almost. And I think that some people, I've heard people talk about extraterrestrials and things relating to that and human history, and something about them just rings true in my heart. Like I just feel like this person, what they're telling me, it's resonating with me on a soul level. And then other times I'll hear people discuss like similar topics, and they just sound like they are full of it. Like they just sound like they're going through psychosis or something. And so I think if some people have a genuine extraterrestrial experiences, or even past life memories on other planets, on exoplanets or something, it can probably be hard to connect with real people or weed through like the lunatics who have very much populated those online spaces. And I remember, just jumping around topics a little bit, but I remember one time I astral projected, and I was in a laboratory, and there was reptile people. They were wearing lab coats like humans, but they had like lizard heads, like the typical reptilian aliens. One of them had like a clipboard or something. They were talking to each other. They had sharp teeth and like greenish skin, and there was somebody strapped to like a operating table, but they were like strapped down onto it, like they were there against their will. And it was like a big lab with all this like big equipment, and I was just kind of floating there, just kind of like looking at the scene, and I was astral projecting. And they both immediately stopped like mid-sentence, and they both like turned and like looked right at me, like, why are you here? And I remember I got scared, and I like kind of flew backwards away from them, and they didn't come after me, but they just stayed staring at me. It was like their psychic abilities were so strong that they could easily see me, even though I was an astral traveler. I remember getting a little bit scared, but they never came towards me, so it was okay, I guess. And I had another dream that there was a town, I don't know where, and I don't know when. It was a really small town, but it was a really nice town. Like, I don't know. It made me think of like Oregon or Vermont or something. It was a really nice town, but it was very small. And something happened in that town with reptile aliens. Something in this town happened, and the reptiles, they took everyone in the town. Like, there was no, I don't think they, unalived them. I think they just, they took them captive or something, and the town fell into disrepair. And it's like one of those towns, like the mysterious disappearance of such and such town type of videos we see online, about one of those like ghost towns where the town like moved, like everyone like abandoned the town, but nobody knows why or what happened to them. It's like, this is what happened to them. They were taken by a group of extraterrestrials, but I don't know what town it was, and I don't know when it happened, although it felt like it happened in the past, like in the farther past. And that was another like dream I had. I've never, as far as I know, I've never dreamt of other planets. But apparently other people have, and that's interesting. A few other people in the spiritual community outside of the extraterrestrial community have also made a few videos here and there discussing discussing extraterrestrials. And so I think as we move forward, we're going to start hearing more about it. The other problem with extraterrestrial stuff is false flags. There's a lot of false flags. Obviously, the government wants to keep the existence of these beings, under wraps for as long as possible, even though other governments around the world have pretty much admitted it. They haven't really shown like explicit proof, but like many other countries around the world have openly admitted to the existence and their interaction with extraterrestrial beings. The US is like the only one that really is just like holding on for dear life to the idea that no, these are not real, they don't exist. But other countries, other first world countries have admitted to it, like New Zealand, for example. And so, yeah, the narrative is that they're all evil and they're dangerous and they're scary, although obviously that's not the case. There's a lot of them here, I believe, to cause harm, and then there are a lot of them here to kind of counteract those, or to help humans elevate spiritually. And I think that there may be a staged event in the future to kind of color the public's view, almost like a kind of propaganda that's going to happen eventually, to kind of really scare people from the idea of greeting them with open arms, basically, to make people be more fearful of them so that they won't want to interact with them should they make themselves present in an open contact kind of a situation. And so but yeah, I'm definitely a firm believer. I don't try to interact with extraterrestrials. I've never called out to or tried to work with extraterrestrials. I've had many dreams about them over the course of my life. None for a long time though. But yeah, 100%, they're definitely real. All of my beings have, validated for me my dreams and told me that they are real. And that many humans carry DNA from the ancient Sumerian times. And I guess that lends credibility to those stories, the creation stories, the creation myths of humans, that in the ancient Sumerian or Babylonian times where the Annunaki and the Nephilim, and how the Annunaki messed with human DNA to create humans as they are today, basically. And so some humans carry Nephilimic DNA and some humans carry Anunnaki DNA, which they're two different kinds of DNA. That was verified for me as well. And basically, some people who carry certain DNAs relating to different ancient extraterrestrial races, they have a connection. They have an innate connection to those beings, and sometimes those extraterrestrial beings, those ancient beings, they keep tabs on their ancestors. There are certain people alive today who are spiritually gifted, who are actually descended from or carry some DNA from the Anunnaki or the Nephilim, the Watchers. And some of them are they're being watched by the Anunnaki and the Nephilim. They keep tabs on certain people. I don't know why. Maybe just to watch over their spiritual progress, maybe. That's what I would think. But yeah, they keep tabs on people. And it's interesting. And that's its own video I wanted to talk about, which is about a lot of people don't know that a lot of different kinds of spirits are probably keeping tabs on them for different reasons. And I'll probably talk about that in its own video. But yeah, the Anunnaki are a thing. The Sumerian stuff, all that ancient stuff, it's like a real thing. Enlil and Enki and Inanna and Ereshkigal and all these different things. And I do also have a connection to some of these beings as well. There's no reason for me to talk about it right now, talk about who it is or what that means for me, because I have not gone down that path yet of personal discovery, at least that branch of my existence, we could say. But they're they're definitely a thing. They're definitely around. Also, if you are one of the people who are of the mind of needing to contact these off-planet beings, these extraterrestrial beings, these other civilizations or whatever, be careful. You don't want to end up on the radar of negative beings. You don't want to end up on a watch list, a government watch list. You don't want to end up on the wrong side of the government, and you don't want to end up on the radar of negative extraterrestrials. A lot of the information out there, I imagine, about different races, some of them I imagine is not even true, and some of it is true. And you know, a lot of these beings, it'll just say what they might look like, where they're from. Sometimes it doesn't even say if they're positive or evil. Like, it doesn't say. And you don't want to just reach out to any extraterrestrial race because they seem like they're nice. Sometimes the nicest ones can be the evil ones. You know, we don't really know a lot of them. You know, you can use your discernment, you can do divination, you can ask your spiritual guides, is it okay if I reach out? You know, would that benefit me? Should I just stay away? That's the smart way to go about it. You know, you want to be careful. You don't want to astral project into like the base of negative entities and get your like soul snatched away, because apparently that's like actually a thing that they can do, and then you'll end up falling into a coma and nobody's going to know what happened to you. You don't want to do that. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Not only that, but speaking of like false light, there's also the whole thing about like the Great White Brotherhood, which is like an extraterrestrial group of like ascended masters or extraterrestrials, and it always rubbed me the wrong way. It seemed a little off to me. There are real ascended masters, and there are real groups of extraterrestrial like councils and stuff, but this specific group, this Great White Brotherhood of Light, it always felt off to me. It's like very new agey, but it just felt weird. It gives me weird vibes. I don't know if I necessarily endorse it or like it or even believe in that group. It always rubbed me the wrong way. If I ever get information to, you know, make me think otherwise, then I'll go back on what I'm saying right now. But as of now, I don't trust that group. And so, you know, there's all that like love and light, and then a lot of those people in those groups, they are very like, not hysterical, they're just very weird. Like they're almost like, they almost make it seem like it's like a cult. It's like very off-putting. And a lot of them will like come forward and try to give like prophecies or extraterrestrial prophecies, saying that, oh, the extraterrestrials, they're watching over us, they're saving us, they're coming forward, oh, they're about to come forward, but you know, they're pushing back against like the government plans. Oh, you know, just they say a lot of these things. And not to say none of them are spiritually gifted, but most of them just seem like charlatans who are like so enveloped in their own spiritual psychosis. And so just be wary of content creators in the whole extraterrestrial realm, especially if they are of like that new age extraterrestrial movement. Because there's one thing if you listen to somebody like Alex Collier, who is just talking about, very matter of fact, just discussing contact with beings, versus somebody like David Wilcock, or I think that's his name, and he is just saying some off the wall things. And not to say that David Wilcock is not the real deal, but he said a lot of things in the recent years that are a little off to me. So obviously just use your own discernment when it comes to all of this stuff. But yeah, extraterrestrials, aliens, you know, and then there are aliens ties to ancient civilizations in the world, which I also 100% believe to be a thing. So it's a lot, there's a lot to unpack there, and there's more to learn, always and obviously. But that's all I really wanted to talk about. I just wanted to talk about my own little bits of thoughts. I'm very into astronomy, and I'm also very into well, I won't say I'm very into it as much now. Stuff about like ETs, I kind of backed off from like being part of that world. I was just heavy into doing research when I was younger, and I kind of was just kind of keep tabs on it here and there. But now, it's funny that now I feel like we're inching closer to open contact, and around these times I'm like more and more detached from that whole idea. Not from the idea of open contact, but from the topic, the subject matter in general. So I think that's everything I wanted to touch on, more or less. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and sound off in the comments. See you in the next one. Take care.